First off, I want to thank the brave men and women who work behind the wall. I want to thank them on a national level because their job goes unrecognized.
How do they try to turn a guard?
Well, correctional officer. Sorry, I apologize. But correctional officer.
Hi, Connie Alleyne here. I am the founder and CEO of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I got the call from Anthony that he wanted me to talk about a very sensitive topic. Actually, he wanted me to talk to someone, and then through our discussion, realized that I had firsthand experience with dealing with the issue at hand, and that is domestic violence. It is a very very tough topic to talk about. I served as a domestic violence shelter director for some time prior to, during actually my time as prison administrator, and certainly it opened my eyes to situations that I just didn't know existed. So before I kind of dive into that, I just want to extend my condolences to the family of Alyssa L. Martin. She was an officer who was a victim of domestic violence, who lost her life earlier this month. Anthony has done a wonderful dedication to her, and if anything, I really do hope that we can raise awareness and help others to understand how important it is for us to take action when we observe our colleagues in the environment that we see or we know something, friends and family as well, because domestic violence is such a big deal. If there is anyone right now struggling, please call 911. Like, that is your first call to action. And honestly, if you don't feel that calling 911 is the answer for you, there is a domestic violence hotline that you can call. It is 800-799-SAFE. 800-799-7233. Get the help you need right now. So I'm just gonna jump into just the topic at hand. It is very difficult to talk about just because I've known people who've experienced or who have lived through domestic violence, and I oftentimes wondered, why are they staying? Like, what's going on? Are they not strong enough? Are they not smart enough? Like, how could they just not leave? And I think that was the uneducated, unempathetic side of me that just really didn't understand the entire dynamic and the psychology behind it all. But let's just start from the beginning. Domestic violence is something that occurs between an individual and their intimate partner, and that can take on many forms, whether it's they're married or they're just cohabitating. The reality is that domestic violence can happen. It involves violence against the partner, against the children, against a parent, against the elderly. Like, it happens. It takes the form of physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, economic abuse, religious abuse, reproductive abuse, and sexual abuse. There are many organizations out there that provide critical support to victims, that include like safety planning, and emergency shelter and court advocacy, and you name it, counseling, support groups. It's there. I know that it is very difficult to sometimes step out of that comfort zone and go get the help. For many women who have been abused for an extended period of time, like, they didn't volunteer for that abuse. And so there is some insensitivity that I think can take place depending on who you talk to and what their experiences have been. right? When you've been abused, someone told you ain't shit for a long time, right? Over time, you believe you not nothing. You know, it's hard to all of a sudden get that self-esteem back and go out and advocate for yourself. Get that self-esteem back and go out and get the support that you need. Oftentimes, many of these women feel like this is what they deserve. And I'm not going to be completely biased because men get abused as well. So, according to the national statistics on domestic violence, 1 in 4 women have experienced severe violence by an intimate partner. 1 in 9 men have experienced that as well. And so this is not to say that this is only happening to women, because it's not. You know, it's I think when emotions get caught up and people are losing control and they're losing the power that they have to leverage over their partner, things begin to escalate. And as a shelter director, I've had women come in battered, bruised. They haven't gone to a hospital. They made the call. They got into a safe place. They were able to get their kids out, and they get into the shelter and they're emotional and they're hurt. They're experiencing the gamut of emotions. They're happy, they're sad, they're hurt, they're distraught, they're anxious, they don't trust anyone. Like, there's just so much happening. They're in like this protection mode. They're trying to protect their children. You know, sometimes you see that and you're like, why is the woman so defensive? Or, you know, why is she so jumpy? But you don't know what trauma that woman has experienced and endured over whatever period of time she was with her partner. And you just can't go in without knowing a little history about what's happening. Having said, I had a woman come in one night. She was a dentist. And, you know, my initial thought was like, a dentist? Really? Like, what kind of situation is going on? I mean, she was Asian. And so, you know, then all the stereotypical crap goes on in my head, which we would like to say we're all unbiased and we don't have those biases and we don't stereotype, but whatever. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, she's a dentist. That means she's smart. You know, I'm assuming she was married, which she was. She had a child. And then after I sat and talked with her, she said, I needed to get out, but I know I cannot stay because he's going to keep my son away from me. He has control of my money. So when we say there's this economic leverage sometimes, either one, if the abuser has control of the finances, that's a reason why some women go back. That's a reason why some women stay. And two, there's times where the abuser actually they're the breadwinner. So what do you do when you feel like you have no options, right? So many women stay, or if they get out, they go back. Why? Because that's the person who paid the bills. That's the person who kept food in their stomach and kept them with clean clothes and took care of their children. And so they feel like they have no options, you know, just to put things in perspective a little bit. So in the United States, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner. Just to put that in perspective, that equates to almost 10 million men and women each year who are actually experiencing physical abuse. That's a big number, right? I mean, it's like one of those situations where, you know, you say, okay, so what exactly is happening? You have a rift goes on in a home, things get heated, things get violent, and something needs to happen. The person who's been abused may not be strong enough to get up and walk out. They may feel further threatened that if you attempt to leave, I'm going to do more damage to you. But that's a reality, right? Like, it is not always an easy out. Like, how do I get out of this? And so just to bring it home a bit, right? So in the context of officers, I have done some of the research, and really the research relative to officer abuse, abuse amongst officers who are intimate partners, it wasn't most reliable. So I don't want to start throwing out numbers where we would have to question the validity of, the research. So here's the thing, right? You have officers who we know have very stressful jobs, high stress, low sleeping, ability to sleep, some of the atrocities or just awful experiences that they have in the work environment, outside of the work environment, is just very significant. And so based on that foundational information that we know to be factual, there is a pretty significant number of officer relationships that end up in domestic violence disputes or domestic disputes. That is out there. That research is out there. The number is they say 40% of relationships amongst officers have a domestic violence history. Because I'm uncertain, I don't want to say that to be factual, but that is the number that's out there. And so what happens, right? In that situation, you have officers who could possibly work in the same environment, right? So if I come in and I accuse my husband of abusing me, I'm going to have to deal with the possible backlash from our colleagues, who one might feel I shouldn't bring this into the workplace, or two might feel I'm jeopardizing that person's job or their retirement or whatever. And then you got to think about, so if that information gets out there, how does my vulnerability now become an issue, a security issue in the environment? Are inmates going to deal with me differently because they know that I'm getting beat up, right? Like, what is the translation for someone coming into the work environment and really doing what they know they should do, which is reporting that to their supervisor, bringing it to a warden, bringing it up the chain of command so that someone knows what is happening and why it's happening. So that's one thing. I think, so you think about relationships in the environment, you think about power dynamics with the inmates, you think about, how does this affect my career, right? Like, so what happens to me when I become known as this person, right? Because there's still some negative thoughts behind domestic disputes. It's a family situation. Why are people bringing family things into the environment? Because it's happening, right? I think what we also need to consider is what happens when you do come forward as an officer and you say, I'm being abused, and your spouse happens to be an officer. So if you currently have a firearm, just know that your firearm would be taken away, and there's a process for you to go through in order to get your firearm back. And the reason why that's important is because the presence of a firearm in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide by 500%. 500%. Somebody's going to die, right? And so I need us to be really aware that when these situations take place, that we are really putting ourselves at risk, our families at risk. There are a number of cases that I read about where, husband comes in, kills his wife, the kids, then kills himself, right? Wife comes in, kills her husband, kills her kids, kills himself. Like 72% of all murder homicides involve an intimate partner. Just in case we're thinking, oh, that can't be right, that's like a big number. And 94% of those murder-suicides involve women. Like, the woman is the victim in 94% of those situations. So, I can't impress upon you guys how important it is to, one, if you see something, say something. Sometimes it's a matter of conversation. And I get it. We all got our own family values. And, many women feel like, I have to stay, I have to support him, I have to help him get through this, right? Some things are just beyond your control, right? Some things you cannot help, you are not qualified to help deal with. Some things are beyond your scope. And like, if you're there and you're hanging on and he keeps saying, I'm going to go to counseling, I'm going to go get help, this is the last time, this is the last time. How many times does it have to be the last time before it's the last time? Men, the message is the same. How many times does it have to be the last time before it's the last time? Right? Like, is your life not worth it? The life of your children, the life of your family. It's one of those situations where if something happens and people have seen evidence that they're like, gosh, I should have done something, I should have said something, I should have asked a question, and it shouldn't have just been like, it's none of my business, And you know what? Someone may say it's none of your business, but at least you came forward. At least you showed that you were concerned. Maybe the concealer she wore that day, it didn't hide the bruise. Maybe it just covered it a little bit, right? And, bruises on the body, when you've got people who are coming and showing you things, or you're changing your uniform in a locker room and you see something. There's no and if you ask and it just doesn't sound plausible, like, ask a little more if you really care about that person. So people say, oh, but I got a restraining order. Oh, but I got, a protective order. Like, the restraining order, like, does it work? It's supposed to work, right? But they only issue that restraining order. Like, so through Superior Court, there will be an issuance of a restraining order. But if the accuser wasn't arrested, it doesn't escalate to the protective order that comes from criminal court. You'll then escalate to a protective order if that person was actually arrested. So what happens, right? So you could have a restraining order, but you still got to call 911. What happens in that time? I know that some of the research talks about how police officers usually hesitate to come forward as well because they question whether or not there'll be a fair investigation. Will, the officers cover up for the other officer? How will you be seen because you've now brought this forward? I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, yes, you can be concerned about all that other stuff that's going on, but what's more important than your safety? What's more important than your life? It is a very sensitive topic, and you do want to encounter people who are empathetic, who can only imagine what you've been through, who aren't going to judge you, who are going to try their best to give you the support that you need. But you've got to at least be able to come forward and say something to someone. Whether it's someone that you trust, whether it's a perfect stranger who's only going to just try their best to do the right thing so that you stay alive. Please, please, please don't hesitate to come forward. Just know that when you go into the shelter environment, those shelters are really positioned to help you in all areas. So, for example, not only when we had women come in with children, did we make sure that we had a partnership with, I guess, an equivalent to like a baby buggy or like Babies R Us, where we can get like clothes and diapers and formula and all that goodness. Like, we got that for those women who came in. We got them situated in schools if they needed. We helped them to get jobs. We had, groups that were of women who had similar experiences that they could talk to and talk about those experiences that they had and the disappointment that they felt. And I had one woman say, "But Miss Connie, you don't understand what it feels like for your dream to die, for you to get married and have all these wonderful thoughts about what this marriage is going to be like. And then the reality of what happens in the marriage, the domestic disputes that happen, the physical violence that happens, the rape that happens. You can't imagine that you're even going through this and that this is what your happily ever after is." And in hearing the stories, you say to yourself, "Oh my God, like, how can I help her now? How can I help her be strong now? How can I help reinforce that she deserves better, that she's good enough, that she can go back to school, that she can get a job, that we will support her as she tries to find an apartment?" We were connected to like different housing authorities to try to help people get situated in permanent housing. I mean, once we called and we went through the courts and it was a domestic violence situation, because safety is so important, like, we had different organizations who were helping us get these women situated. But please just know, it is a matter of coming forward. Know that help is out there and that people are willing to do whatever it is they can do to support you. I will close by just saying, it is tough. It isn't just leave. It isn't, how could you even allow that to happen? It isn't judgment. It is saying you found yourself in a situation that you can no longer handle on your own without support. And now that you know that there is support out there, it may take you some time to get I don't even want to say the strength, but it's almost like to get the courage to be able to say enough is enough. I don't want my kids to witness this. I would rather be in an environment where I don't have to be with this person. I don't have to worry about what mood they're going to come in and what wrath I'm going to have to endure. Will I survive today? Is today the last day that I'm going to see my children? You've got to find a way to encourage yourself at a time when it's so very difficult. And please know, when you have been connected to the right services, you won't feel like less than. Those people will reinvigorate your spirit with compassion and with understanding and with support and all of the things that you need in order to get back on your feet and to live a safe and healthy life. So, if you need help, 911, please. And if you think that 911 is not the route you want to go, you can call the hotline. It's 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or visit www.thehotline.org. Again, that is www.thehotline.org. Please be safe.